19-5 Appropriate use of statistical measures. Your essential question: which measure of central tendency is most useful to describe a given situation? Presented by your lovely teacher, Miss Villaseñor. Okay, let's start with what is central tendency. When we're talking about measures of central tendency, we're talking about finding the mean, and we're talking about the median and the mode. That is what we consider measures of central tendency. Okay, let's look at the example from the book. And Gary states that he scores a 98 on his weekly quizzes. On average, he says he scores a 98. So on step 1, what we're going to do is a stem and leaf chart with his scores. Okay, so we're going to make the lines here. And looking in the book, one of his first, we'll put S for, well, I'll go ahead and spell it out, stem, and then we have leaves here. And one of his scores, he scored, and we're going to go in numerical order. One of his scores, he scored a 65. And another score, he didn't score any 70s. And then he had another one that was an 85, and then an 87 and an 88. And then he scored a 90, a 91, a 92, a 93, and a 98, and a 98. Now let's remember that according to Gary, he usually scores a 98 on his weekly quizzes. So what we're doing is we're looking for clusters, or what they call gaps or outliers, to help with the measures of the central tendency that Gary scores. So let's find out the mode here. Okay, so let's start with finding the mode. Remember, mode means the one that repeats. Well, looking at the information here from the stem and leaves, we see that 98 is the one that repeats more than once. So his mode is 98. And so because he scored a 98 twice, it makes it, that makes it look better than it really is. Just because he scored a 98 2 times doesn't necessarily mean he gets this all the time. Now let's find the mean. And with the mean, okay, the mean, if you remember, you add all these scores, and then you divide it by how many scores, and that's going to give us about 88.7 when we add it all together and then divide. And because of the outlier, the 65, that was the lowest score, kind of makes his average look lower than it really is because of this outlier. And then the last one we're going to figure out is the median. Remember, the one in the middle and between the scores. So we could go the beginning, right, left, right, then this one, this one, this one, this one, So then it's going to be somewhere in the middle here. So our median is going to be 90.5. which is in the middle between those cluster scores, as they say, the regular scores, so about 90.5. Okay, so let's go back and analyze what Gary said. Remember, in the beginning, Gary said, oh, I score about a 98 on a weekly basis. But when we look at the central tendency, which would mean figure out the median, the mode, and the mean, we look like the one that would probably tell us give us the best information on what his scores are pretty much on a regular basis would be more of the median. So if you look at it, his scores are about in the 90s, so like low 90s or right on the 90 would be the best description. Because of the outlier, that 65, it kind of brought his mean way down, right? When you add them all together, it says on average he scores in the 80. And just because because just 98 he scored 2 times doesn't mean that most of his, as he claims, most of his tests are in the 98s. He only did that 2 times, okay? So, So going back to answering the question, was this appropriate? What Gary says that his scores are usually in the 98. It would be no, because on average, for the most part, he's scoring in the 90s. Okay, so 90.5, low 90s. If you have any questions, come see your teacher, and you should be good to go. Thank you.